Ian, one of my friends, informed me that a girl named Callista had invited him to a party at a big house. I was intrigued because Ian didn't often get personal invitations like this, but he was visibly excited. As we started our drive, he suddenly noticed that Callista had blocked him on the messaging app. It was weird, to say the least, but none of us wanted to ruin the night. A promising party was hard to resist, and we figured it might just be some sort of mistake. The car ride was filled with jokes and excitement as we imagined what kind of party awaited us. Ian kept speculating about why Callista might have blocked him. Bryson, another friend, joked that it was probably because Ian had accidentally liked one of her photos from 2 years ago. That light-hearted banter helped ease the odd tension we felt. Still, there was a strange undercurrent to everything, an unspoken doubt we were all trying to ignore. When we finally pulled up to the house, it was massive, almost mansion-like. All the lights were on, creating a stark, almost unnatural brightness. I remember thinking how different it looked from the typical dimly lit college parties I was used to. There was instrumental music playing, not the kind of energetic tracks that get everyone dancing, but something eerily serene, almost hypnotic. As we approached the entrance, I couldn't shake the growing sense that something was off. But we were already there, so we walked in. As soon as we stepped inside, the peculiar atmosphere of the party hit me. Everything about it felt curated, like it was staged for some kind of performance rather than a typical college gathering. The guests weren't dressed casually like us, they wore formal attire, almost as if they were attending a gala or a high-end cocktail event. I could feel Bryson's unease as he glanced at his own sneakers and hoodie. The lighting inside was harsh, with no dim corners or moody colors to blend into. It felt clinical, almost too revealing, as though it was designed to make us vulnerable. The music was another strange element, soft but with a rhythm that made me feel on edge. No vocals, just an endless loop of an instrumental track that seemed to lack any real purpose or climax. It was unsettling, but I brushed it off, convincing myself that we were just overthinking it. Despite the odd vibe, Ian was determined to make the most of it. He started mingling with the crowd, confidently introducing himself to strangers. Bryson and I stuck together, silently observing the scene. We weren't sure whether to feel out of place or grateful that Ian's enthusiasm made it easier for us to blend in. But as we continued to explore the house, the feeling that something wasn't right grew stronger. Ian's outgoing nature quickly attracted attention. 3 girls approached us, each holding a tequila shot in hand. They were beautiful, impeccably dressed, and way too direct. They flirted openly with Ian and Bryson, their smiles wide but oddly unchanging, like masks frozen in place. One of them handed me a glass and joked, "You're not afraid of a little price, are you?" I laughed nervously, unsure of what she meant. I tried to join the conversation, but something about their demeanor felt off. Their laughter was synchronized, their words rehearsed, almost mechanical. Ian, as always, didn't seem to notice and took the tequila eagerly. Bryson and I exchanged a glance that said everything: we needed to stay cautious. Despite our reservations, it was hard to resist their charm. Their confidence was magnetic, almost too good to be true. As I took a sip of my drink, I noticed something unusual about one of the girls, Tina. She had a thin, green mark on her neck, a line so precise it looked drawn with a ruler. It didn't seem like makeup or jewelry, it was too deliberate, too unnatural. My unease deepened, but I told myself it was just a weird coincidence. After all, why would something so small matter? Later that evening, I decided to find the bathroom. Navigating the large house felt like wandering through a maze. The layout was disorienting, with identical hallways and doors that all looked the same. When I finally found the bathroom, I felt a moment of relief. But as I turned to leave, I noticed a man standing just outside the door. He was older, impeccably dressed, and had the same green mark on his neck as Tina. His gaze was cold and calculating, like he was assessing me. "Who invited you?" he asked in a voice that was both calm and threatening. I froze for a second, debating whether to lie or tell the truth. "Callista," I said hesitantly. The man's lips curled into a chilling smile. "Do you see Callista here?" he asked, his tone dripping with malice. I couldn't answer. My mind raced as I realized that no one at the party had mentioned Callista since we arrived. The man took a step closer, his smile widening. "You should leave," he said, his voice barely above a whisper but carrying enough weight to feel like a command. My instinct screamed at me to get out of there, and I didn't need to be told twice. Panicked, I hurried back to find Ian and Bryson. They were on the staircase, laughing and talking to the girls they had met earlier. But something was wrong. Both of them now had red marks on their necks, similar to the green ones I had seen earlier. The difference was subtle but unmistakable. My stomach dropped as I realized they might be marked for something sinister. I tried to convince them to leave with me, but Ian waved me off, too drunk and enamored with Tina to care. Bryson was more hesitant but still didn't fully understand the urgency. "Dude, it's just a party," he said, his voice slurring slightly. I didn't have time to argue. I grabbed both of them by the arms and practically dragged them toward the door, ignoring their protests. As we made our way out, I noticed the guests watching us. Their gazes were intense, following our every move. It felt like we were being silently judged, evaluated, and possibly even condemned. Yet, none of them tried to stop us. It was as if they knew something we didn't, something that would keep us coming back whether we wanted to or not. Once we were back in the car, I finally felt like I could breathe again. But that relief was short-lived. Ian's phone buzzed first, then Bryson's, and finally mine. The messages were from the girls we had met at the party. "Why did you leave?" one of them wrote. Another simply said, "Come back." My hands shook as I read them. The timing was impossible to ignore. There was no way they could have known we left, especially since we hadn't said goodbye. The messages felt invasive, like they were watching us even now. Ian laughed it off, thinking it was just their way of flirting, but Bryson and I weren't so sure. We decided to block their numbers, hoping that would be the end of it. As we drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had narrowly escaped something far worse than a bad party. The house faded into the distance, but its haunting presence lingered in my mind. I didn't know what those marks meant or why Callista had invited Ian in the first place, but one thing was clear: this was no ordinary party. I'm a university student who's always been deeply invested in my video editing projects. Creativity has always been my outlet, especially during tough times. I recently went through a breakup with Ben, someone I was with for 2 years. It left me feeling a mix of relief and emptiness. It's hard to focus on deadlines when emotions feel this heavy. Balancing my academics and personal life has been challenging. Deadlines pile up, professors demand excellence, and I push myself harder than I should. But honestly, it's not just the pressure from school that's been getting to me, it's the growing sense of unease, like something isn't right. Sometimes, I feel like I'm being watched, but I shake it off as paranoia. I've always prided myself on keeping everything under control, but recently, cracks have started to show. My friends tell me I overthink, but they don't know what it's like to feel constantly on edge. It's exhausting, and I can't help but wonder if it's all in my head, or if there's something darker at play. It started one morning when I logged into my email to send my professor a video project I'd been working on for weeks. But when I played the attachment, it wasn't my project, it was a strange clip of someone wearing a "scream" mask. The person's voice was distorted as they mocked me. I froze, my stomach dropping as the clip played in front of my entire class. Then, things escalated. My social media accounts were hacked. Personal photos, old messages, and even private notes were posted online for everyone to see. My Snapchat started sending out videos of places I'd never been to, dark alleyways, random empty rooms. It felt like the hacker was taunting me, making me question where they'd been and how close they'd gotten. The worst part was feeling completely exposed. I couldn't trust my own devices anymore. Each notification made my heart race, and every message carried the weight of dread. It was no longer just an invasion of my privacy, it was an attack on my sense of security. After the video incident, my first instinct was to change all my passwords. I spent hours resetting every account, thinking it would put an end to the nightmare. But the hacker was relentless. Somehow, they kept getting back in, and each breach felt like another punch to my gut. I finally went to the police, hoping they'd track down whoever was behind this. They told me my ex, Ben, had posted my personal information on forums, but he swore he wasn't involved in the actual hacking. Without solid evidence, they couldn't do much more. I left the station feeling helpless, as if the walls were closing in on me. The paranoia began creeping into my daily life. Every stranger felt like a potential threat, and I started questioning the intentions of everyone around me. It wasn't just my online presence that was under attack, it felt like my entire world was falling apart. Then the messages started. They weren't just random taunts, they were personal. Pictures of me walking home from campus, sitting at my favorite coffee shop, even through my window at night. Whoever was doing this wasn't just behind a screen, they were right there, watching me. One night, I heard faint footsteps outside my window. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but then I saw a shadow move. My breath caught as I froze in place, too afraid to make a sound. It was clear now, this wasn't just a hacker. This was someone with a physical presence in my life, and they wanted me to know it. They didn't stop there. Multiple fake accounts flooded my inbox, each more sinister than the last. No matter how many I blocked, new ones appeared. The messages hinted at knowing my routine, where I went, and who I saw. It felt like I was being hunted, and there was no escaping. I've never felt more humiliated or powerless. After the video played in class, I couldn't even look my classmates in the eye. Friends stopped reaching out, probably because they didn't want to get involved in the chaos surrounding me. I felt isolated, trapped in a nightmare with no end in sight. Every sound in my apartment became a potential threat. The creak of a floorboard, the hum of the fridge, it all made my heart race. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. Was someone really there, or was my mind playing tricks on me? Paranoia became my constant companion. What scares me the most is not knowing how far this will go. Will they break into my apartment? Will they hurt me? I'm living on the edge, constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next shoe to drop. It's a terror I wouldn't wish on anyone.